What's going on, guys? Apathettic here with all your tips, recommendations, and everything in between. In today's video, I'm going to walk you through step by step what the best Warlock build in 2020 pre-Beyond Light is going to be. So we're going to cover everything from the subclass to use, the weapons and loadouts you should focus on depending on your playstyle, and stats you should be aiming for on your Warlock. So whether you're just starting to play Warlock or you're a veteran player looking up your Warlock game, you're going to want to stick around. Let's get into it. Getting into your subclass of choice here, we are talking about Top Tree Dawnblade. And before I get in depth into the different advantages of this subclass, we need to make sure we have the basics. What I mean by this is making sure that we have the appropriate options selected in your subclass. Starting with our Rift, you need to make sure you have the Healing Rift selected, because a huge part of what makes Top Tree Dawnblade so good is the ability to be elusive and stay alive. Having the Healing Rift selected in this selection allows us to make sure we are optimizing our ability to stay alive, but also anchor down certain areas of the map by using our healing. That's not to say that the Empowering Rift doesn't have utility, but in my opinion, the Healing Rift offers even more utility and makes our Warlock that much harder to kill. The next basic thing we need to have selected is our Solar Nade. And I've talked about this in the past, but the Solar Nade is just so much better than the other options here. It allows you to block off areas of the map or high interest points like heavy or a control point, and melt Titans and their barricade. The other grenades on the Solar Warlock subclass have a much more niche use, and you're welcome to use them, but just know that you'll be handicapping yourself. Lastly, for the basics, we need to talk about our jump, and the selections here is critical for our ability to Icarus dash, which we'll talk about later, and getting around the map as quickly as possible. With that being said, you want to select Burst Glide. This is going to give you the biggest boost of speed as you Warlock skate around the map, and as stated earlier, also gives a nice boost in our Icarus dash, which allows us to get around the map even faster. If you're not sure how to Icarus dash or Warlock skate correctly, I'll leave a link in the description for my Warlock's tips playlist, where I go over multiple ways to improve your Warlock gameplay, which includes how to Warlock skate and Icarus dash. Diving into our subclass of choice, as the best subclass for Warlock is going to be Top Tree Dawnblade. This subclass has been totally revamped since my last best Warlock build video, and as a result is now top dog. This subclass brings a lot to the table in terms of lethality, movement, and overall survivability, starting with our first perk, Winged Sun. Fire weapons, send celestial fire, and throw grenades while gliding. Airborne final blows extend the effect of heat rises and grant grenade energy. Now, what makes this perk so awesome is it completely opens up the vertical space for Warlock, because of the fact that now when I'm floating in the air, I don't disable my glide when I shoot or throw grenades, which allows me to engage my enemy in a whole new way. If I know my enemy is going to be pushing me with a shotgun, I can Icarus dash away, jump in the air, and as I'm floating backwards, I can freely shoot at my enemy, who's usually expecting me to be on the ground or unable to shoot while gliding. The other option is it allows you to push your enemies from a vantage point they weren't expecting. Now they have to account for you either being on the ground or airborne, and being equally lethal, where other subclasses are at a disadvantage while airborne. This may seem like a small advantage, but it's not until you try to do similar moves on other Warlock subclasses that you notice the impact it really makes on your gameplay. It makes you feel so much more free in terms of how you can approach engagements, because now you have this in-air option that was never a really good option in the past. Pair all this with the Icarus mod on your weapons, and now you're even more deadly and have basically perfect accuracy with your weapons in the air. Moving on to a huge part of what makes Top Tree the best option for your competitive Warlock build, and that's going to be the Icarus dash, which allows you to dodge midair twice, and I personally bind this to Q. This ability is so valuable, guys, and has so many uses that it's kind of hard to know where to start, but let's start with how quickly we can get around the map. This ability, when paired with Burst Glide, allows us to reach strong points on the map faster than the enemy team, and especially in modes like Control, where the initial fight is usually for B point. As a Top Tree Warlock, you're almost always going to be the first one there. Now, the overall speed you gain from this ability also translates in the ability to simply get away. This ability allows you to effectively escape any super you know is coming. I can't tell you guys how many times I've had a Spectral Blades or Bottom Tree Striker Titan just completely give up on chasing me because of how much ground you can cover so quickly with this subclass. Like, you are gone once you hit those two Icarus dashes. This concept also applies to escaping gunfights, because you have two charges of Icarus dash. This allows you to secure a kill, turn around and Icarus dash towards a corner, and then use your second Icarus dash and curve around the corner for an effective escape. It's use cases like this one that have really highlighted to me how often this ability saves me from being finished off after a gunfight. Because of how fast you can get away, it also allows a bit more freedom in how you engage your enemy, because you know just how quickly you can disengage from a fight or immediately after a fight. The other way Icarus Dash greatly benefits us is when we are taking advantage of Winged Sun and firing shots from the air. And having the ability to Icarus Dash back and forth to dodge some enemy fire mid-air is critical in allowing us to survive in that situation. Now, the other benefit of Icarus Dash is how you can create misdirection with your opponents mid-fight, especially when shotgunning or in close quarters combat. You can get up close and shotgun one enemy, and as the second enemy pushes you, you can Icarus Dash backwards or directly over their head to escape or confuse them, buying you some time if you so choose to secure a second kill. Overall, Icarus Dash brings the ability to create misdirection and a large amount of separation between your and opponents in a very quick burst, which can be used offensively or defensively. Next, we have Heat Rises. Consume grenade energy to extend your glide time and improve in-air accuracy. This ability is an ability that I personally need to use more. Heat Rises opens up the ability for some nice surprise plays on areas of the map where typically the enemy wouldn't expect you. Maps with large outside areas are ideal for this ability. It allows you to get very high in the air and stay there, which is especially effective when sniping because the enemy team isn't expecting you to be up that high and for that long, aiming down sights at them. It can also be used to help you stay alive in engagements you may normally have died in, because you can use Heat Rises to play the edge of a map and engage the enemy from somewhere where they simply can't get to you on foot. It's an ability that in my experience when used tactfully can be very effective, but the second it's overused can quickly be shut down, so make sure you use it sparingly and in creative areas of the map where there's a lot of space for you to work with. For the last perk in Top Tree Dawnblade, we have Celestial Fire, which sends out a spiral of 3 explosive solar energy blasts. And what this perk doesn't mention is this melee ability also tracks our enemy. This ability is incredibly powerful and has a very large hit radius up close and can damage multiple enemies if they are close to each other. This ability I found is especially useful when sniping. It allows you to body shot your enemy with a sniper, then hurl Celestial Fire at them to clean them up, making for a deadly 1-2 punch. Another way that this ability can be effectively used is to delay your enemy's ability to recover when they are behind some sort of cover. This is made even more useful against titans behind barricades, as Celestial Fire can not just damage a titan behind a barricade, but depending on their health, it can actually kill them, basically rendering their barricade useless. Celestial Fire is the icing on the cake for this whole subclass and really takes the overall lethality of this subclass to the next level. Talking about weapon loadouts, I typically lean towards hand cannons, and that's my personal preference. As of the making of this video, 150 RPM hand cannons are currently the best archetype of hand cannon with the fastest time to kill. Hand cannons like Thorn or Dire Promise are top choices for me, but keep in mind 150s being the meta for hand cannons can always change. Now, if hand cannons really aren't your thing, then 600 RPM auto rifles are also very good in the meta right now. Specifically, weapons like Gnawing Hunger are absolutely melting in the Crucible because of their very low time to kill. When it comes to special weapons and this build, you're going to have a choice between 2 different types of weapons, and they are shotguns or sniper rifles, and what you choose is going to depend on the playstyle you're going for. If you're someone who likes a very aggressive playstyle, then shotguns are going to be the choice for you. Shotguns, you're going to want to aim for aggressive frame shotguns like Felwinter's Lie or Astral's Horizon, as these shotguns give you the best chance of hitting a one-shot kill from the furthest distance away. Moving on to snipers, and I'll mention that snipers for Top Tree Dawn synergize very well because of things like Celestial Fire and Heat Rises, and this subclass actually allows you to snipe a lot more aggressively because of those abilities, and the ability Icarus Dash and the ability to get away from incoming shotgun rushers. Sniper rifles to look for though are 90 RPM variants, so snipers like Eye of Soul and Kinetic Slot are good, since that's basically the only option you're going to have right now that's not getting sunset before Beyond Light comes out in September. As for our heavy weapon, if I'm going super try hard, typically I'm going to be using some sort of heavy machine gun or Wardcliff Coil, since it does a massive amount of damage and easily melts super. And then even if you, on top of that, if you get the catalyst, this weapon is insane because of the tracking the catalyst adds. So I just want to quickly add again that A lot of these weapons I'm mentioning are currently meta in the Crucible, but down the line, that could all change. Moving on to armor, we're going to cover our stats first, then I'll talk about exotics. The main thing I'm looking for when deciding if I should keep a piece of armor is two things. First, it needs to have an overall stat roll that is higher than 60 for me to even consider it. This is also important because it makes sure the stats that we're not focusing on can still be as high as possible. Secondly, it needs to have stat distribution that has a majority of the stats in intellect and recovery. Starting with why I focus on recovery, and the main reason is because it allows you to get back into the fight as quickly as possible, since you're reducing how long it takes before your health starts regenerating, which can be the difference between winning and losing an engagement. Another huge benefit of having higher recovery is the higher our recovery, the lower our cooldown will be for our rift, thus making recovery even more beneficial to focus on. In terms of how much recovery you want, you always want to have 100 or a tier 10 recovery. If the armor you have can't get you to tier 10 recovery, then it's time to farm new armor. Next, we have intellect, which impacts how fast we get our super. So high intellect can allow us to get supers before our enemy team, and depending on the mode, get my super multiple times per game. The amount of intellect I tend to aim for is roughly around tier 7 or higher. I found this gives me a nice balance of overall stats of my character and still lets me get my super fairly quickly. In terms of mods, I will use whatever helps me achieve tier 10 recovery and a fairly high intellect, and then I'm putting in those enhanced targeting and unflinching mods for whatever primary I happen to be using. Basically, if I'm using a shotgun and hand cannon, I'll make sure to equip enhanced hand cannon targeting and unflinching hand cannon and make sure that I'm optimizing the feel of my primary weapon. The only time this changes is when I'm sniping, and I change the perks I mentioned to enhanced sniper targeting, unflinching sniper, etc. Focusing on using mods that enhance or support whatever my current weapon loadout is the name of the game. So for my class item, I'll recommend using remote connection or pump action. These two mods will give you additional super energy as you get kills with either of these special weapons, which is going to allow us to get our special a little bit faster. Also, making sure you're using the appropriate scavenger perk will make sure that when you pick up special ammo, whether it's for your shotgun or your sniper, that you'll get extra special ammo. Moving on to the best exotics for this subclass, and in my opinion, you really have two optimal choices, and that's between Transversive Steps and Karnstein's Armlets. Personally, I never take my Transversive Steps off. This isn't gonna be any news to you guys that follow me, and it's because of how much smoother it makes movement on Warlock feel overall, and the ability to simply reload your weapons by sprinting around is pretty invaluable. Now, Karnstein's is also a very good exotic, especially when paired with this subclass. It allows you to pull off insane 1v3 plays because of how you can trigger the health regen from a distance with Celestial Fire, but I found this to be more of a very specific type of scenario that honestly shouldn't be happening very often compared to Transversive Steps, which are always going to be actively supporting your movement and ability to impact a game. Ultimately, I would recommend trying both and seeing based on your playstyle and weapon choice which exotic you find more impactful on your play. With that, guys, that is everything you are going to need to be as successful as possible on Top Tree Dawnblade, which is currently the best subclass for competitive Crucible on Warlock in Destiny 2. If you enjoyed this video, make sure you like, share, and subscribe, or drop a follow on my Twitch using the link down below. It's all free ways to support me, and I will catch you guys in the next one.